vehicle, it uses what we call the microsonic energy device. The microsonic energy device, it is the device that I personally invented in 2009.
A car that never needs gas, never plugs in and just keeps running. Sounds impossible, right? But it's real, and it's not coming from Tesla or Toyota. It's coming out of Africa. A quiet inventor from Zimbabwe may have just cracked the code and built a truly self-charging vehicle. No wires, no fuel, just motion. And the wildest part? It's not even a prototype anymore. Mass production is on the table and the auto industry is on freaking out. Stick around, it only gets wilder from here. Africa's auto revolution. While the United States worries about chip shortages and Tesla's next launch, something massive has been unfolding quietly across the Atlantic. In just 10 years, Africa has gone from being a dumping ground for used cars to designing, building and exporting its own vehicles. And this isn't about building flashy concept cars or chasing EV hype. Africa is building vehicles for survival. Tough machines designed to face the real world, not just glide through Silicon Valley traffic.
Traffic gets awful along Bay Area highways. It is easy to think Los Angeles has it much worse than we do.
Let's start with Morocco, the leader of this automotive wave. In 2024 alone, its factories in Tangier and Kenitra rolled out more than 610,000 vehicles. And here's the kicker. 9 out of 10 of those were exported straight to Europe. That makes Morocco not only Africa's top car producer, but also the second largest supplier of vehicles to the European Union after China. Right now, Morocco's total factory capacity is over 1 million cars per year. That's about 1,700 new vehicles being finished every single day, a production rate that outpaces many older plants in Europe.
This is what makes Morocco attractive, and this is what made the Morocco platform grow that fastly.
Next up is South Africa, the country that still sets the gold standard for engineering. With decades of manufacturing experience, it's home to global players like BMW, Ford, and Toyota. Over 100,000 people work in these plants, and more than 300,000 more are employed across the supply chains in logistics, components, and dealerships. About 60% of all South African-built vehicles are exported. But what makes their vehicles stand out is how tough they are, with bakkies and SUVs built to handle rough terrain and harsh environments. Dust-sealed electronics and reinforced suspensions are standard.
That obviously will impact their decision, because they are now, instead of running 2 lines as they used to do traditionally.
But now, let's talk about the underdog that's rising fast, Nigeria. In the town of Niwi, Innocent vehicle manufacturing has expanded rapidly. Back in 2020, they could build 10,000 vehicles a year. Now they've scaled that up to 15,000, and in late 2024, they rolled out Nigeria's first locally built electric pickup truck. These vehicles aren't just copies of foreign models. They're built with thicker body panels and reinforced welds, made to survive the country's deeply cratered roads. Ghana is on the same track. Kantanka Automobile produces up to 7,000 pickups and SUVs each year, almost all of them staying within the country. And they're not just sticking to petrol. They've started experimenting with solar-powered drivetrains to help cut fuel costs.
Some of the alternatives are renewable energy sources, which include all fuel types and energy carriers.
Especially for taxi fleets that spend hours on the road daily. Then there's Kenya, a country whose automotive journey has had its ups and downs. Mobius Motors, based in Nairobi, had to temporarily shut down its factory in 2024 due to funding issues. But with new investment, they're back in action. Their latest vehicle, the Mobius 3, is set for full production in July 2025. This rugged SUV is 60% locally sourced and comes with a turbocharged 1.6-litre engine and a ladder frame designed to handle farm tracks and rural terrain with ease. What's even more impressive is how Africa is building not just cars, but supply chains. In the past, most raw materials had to be imported. Today, Kenya's Devki Group operates a massive steel mill on the coast, producing 500,000 tons of steel annually. That's helped cut frame building costs by nearly 20%. In Egypt, a €1 billion factory in the Suez Canal economic zone is expected to produce 7 million tires every year, many of them headed to plants in Morocco and Nigeria. Meanwhile, upholstery leather is being tanned in Nigeria's Kano state and then sent to dashboards in Ghana and South Africa. This shift to local sourcing keeps money and jobs inside Africa and reduces dependence on foreign supply chains. Now let's talk about what really sets these cars apart. They're built for punishment. Think of ground clearance. Anything under 200 millimeters is not even considered. Suspension parts are overbuilt. Radiators come with stone guards. and every bit of electronics is sealed tight against dust. Unlike Tesla's sleek but sensitive designs, African automakers know you might be driving through mud, sandstorms, or floodwater. That's why they use steel conduits to protect wiring and old-school buttons instead of fancy touch panels. Because out here, it needs to work no matter what. One innocent G6 pickup, for example, might haul cassava to market in the morning, drop kids off at school in the afternoon, and still handle a flooded village road at night, all without glitching or needing a laptop to fix it. Now, electric cars are a big deal globally, but in much of Africa, charging is a serious challenge. More than 600 million people still live without reliable electricity. Even in places with power lines, voltage drops and blackouts are common. On top of that, Africa has the lowest charger-to-person ratio in the world, fewer than one charger for every 10,000 people. So, long-range EVs like Teslas just don't work outside the big cities. That's why self-charging in African vehicles means something different. We're talking hybrids that use regenerative braking, solar panels on the roof, or simple alternator systems that charge batteries while idling. These setups might not look flashy, but they keep lights on and small electronics running, even when the power grid doesn't. And this no-nonsense approach is winning over real customers. In northern Ghana, farming groups say they've cut maintenance costs by up to 30% just by switching from imported used cars to locally made Kantanka pickups. In Kenya, safari operators prefer the Mobius 3 because its sealed cabin keeps dust out of vital systems, avoiding costly breakdowns. And in Nigeria, Innosen's EV pickup is now being used by telecom technicians who charge their tools and laptops straight from the 20 kilowatt-hour battery. Even global car makers are starting to take notes. Volkswagen's plant in Kigali now sources dashboard components from plastics factories in Nairobi. And Stellantis, which owns Jeep, Peugeot and Citroën, is already exploring Morocco's interior for a new SUV production line aimed at the West African market. Here's the bottom line. Africa isn't chasing luxury trends or trying to out-Tesla Tesla. It's solving real transportation problems for real people. Africa laid the groundwork with rugged, locally made vehicles, and China wasted no time in joining the race. China's early bird play in Africa. While the West hesitated, China acted. As American companies debated whether self-charging cars were real or just a gimmick, Chinese investors were already shaking hands, building factories, and forming partnerships across Africa. Their logic was simple: even if the tech wasn't perfect yet, the opportunity was too big to miss. And if Africa could make it work on bumpy roads and unstable power grids, then this idea could work anywhere. In Nairobi, the Chinese connection is already up and running. The Kenyan startup Basigo is putting electric buses on city roads, with 17 of them already operating, each one built with help from Chinese giant BYD.
And it looks really nice. Look at that, KDL, it's brand new, this one.
Backed by a Shenzhen parts company, Kenyan engineers are now designing cheaper power modules to make production more affordable for the local market. Over in Uganda, China's CHTC is working with Kira Motors, a state-backed Ugandan car maker, to refine solar-powered hybrid buses. Their shared goal is simple: cut dependence on diesel and the national grid by making public transport more energy independent. These partnerships aren't about exporting control. They're about shared development. China's interest in East Africa didn't stop there. In May, Ethiopia banned new petrol and diesel cars, opening the door for Guangzhou's GAC group. The company quickly responded by unveiling 2 plug-in hybrid models designed for the local market. Technicians from Guangdong have already begun helping Ethiopian teams prepare for local production. With no old gas plants to replace, Ethiopia is looking to jump straight into the EV era with Chinese support. West Africa is also getting in on the action. Nigeria, the continent's largest economy, signed an exclusive deal last year with Chinese carmaker Geely. Through Kosharis Motors in Lagos, Geely now sells its compact EVs locally and may even begin local assembly if sales keep growing. One of their models can recharge a small battery using roof panels or a generator, cutting both price and dependence on charging stations. Compared to a Tesla, this approach is much more practical in cities where traffic crawls and power isn't always reliable. South Africa gives Chinese automakers another advantage: access to stricter markets. BYD has already announced plans to triple its dealer network in South Africa by the end of next year. They're rolling out 6 full EVs and 2 hybrids.
BYD's growth efforts come at a time of intensifying competition in Africa's largest automotive market.
The local company Golden Arrow Bus Services has ordered 120 of BYD's B12 electric buses, marking the country's largest electric fleet deal so far. So why is China moving so fast while others hold back? The answer is simple: mass production. China isn't waiting for perfect science or industry-wide approval. Its factories are ready to roll out thousands of minibuses and pickups using solar panels, regenerative braking and heavy-duty alternators. These aren't fully self-charging in the traditional sense, but they're self-sufficient enough for places where the power grid is unstable. And in most of Africa, that's a big deal. For Tesla, this is a growing concern. China is Tesla's second-largest market. If Chinese firms like BYD, Geely and GAC can build rugged, low-cost vehicles for Africa, and then start exporting them to other developing regions, Tesla's dominance in Asia could take a serious hit. Chinese automakers are also willing to take risks. They'll launch early and fix problems later. If even one of their designs works, it could flood markets in Southeast Asia before Tesla finalizes a supply deal. But there's more to this than just competition. China is playing the long game. Instead of pushing for control over patents or demanding ownership stakes, Chinese officials frame these deals as partnerships, and that message is landing well. African governments, tired of strict Western rules and intellectual property strings, are seeing China as a more flexible partner. Last year, during a summit, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa called China's support mutually beneficial and praised BYD's role in helping the country deal with rolling blackouts.
Chinese electric vehicle giant BYD plans to nearly triple its dealership network in South Africa by next year.
The reality is, self-charging tech still has a long way to go, but China has already locked in the early advantage. While China locked in deals on the continent, the ripple effect began to hit global auto giants, shaking up the EV world. Western car makers thought the race was theirs. With billions poured into batteries and charging networks, they believed the roadmap was clear. But then came Africa's self-charging breakthrough, and suddenly, everything changed. A car that could power itself without relying on plugs or stations threw the entire industry off balance. Auto giants from Detroit to Wolfsburg were forced into emergency strategy sessions. If vehicles could recharge while moving, what happens to the infrastructure they've spent years and billions building? Volkswagen, which not long ago promised an all-electric lineup by the next decade, is already adjusting course. They've delayed their new scalable systems platform and are now exploring range extender hybrids, just in case the self-charging concept becomes mainstream. Toyota, always cautious with full EVs, has started teaming up with Chinese tech leaders like Huawei, Xiaomi and Momenta to build lighter drivetrains and test solar charging support for their upcoming BZ models. Meanwhile, Ford and General Motors are quietly funding projects to capture energy through boosted regenerative braking and thin solar skins. These developments could help them move beyond the limits of current battery-only vehicles. Tesla spent over a decade and billions of dollars building its supercharger network. That once looked like a major advantage. But today, that very investment could make pivoting harder.
Supercharger network to non-Tesla electric vehicles. Tesla, along with the White House, making that announcement earlier this week.
Companies that didn't lock themselves into proprietary charging setups now find themselves more flexible, and consumers are starting to notice. According to a recent Shell survey involving 15,000 drivers, more than 40% of Europeans and about one-third of Americans still hesitate to buy EVs because of charging concerns. If self-charging becomes real and reliable, these hesitant buyers could flood the market, choosing newer, more practical alternatives, and car makers without charging baggage will be ready. While executives debate what's next, Africa's factories are already moving. In South Africa alone, the auto industry directly employs over 110,000 people, and that number is rising fast as new self-charging vehicle lines launch.
South Africa is experiencing a multi-billion rand automotive investment boost.
In Nigeria and Kenya, the demand for welders, electricians and software technicians is growing. In Cape Town, Golden Arrow Bus Services placed an order for 120 electric buses from BYD, securing years of production and workforce development. Unlike the highly automated factories in Fremont or Shanghai, many African car plants still prioritize hands-on work. Teams rotate through different roles, learning how to install solar panels, wire systems, and calibrate drivetrains. Workers aren't just tightening bolts, they're learning the tech inside and out, and that matters. They take pride in what they build, they track performance, and they offer feedback to improve future models. Labor unions that once feared automation are now backing this wave of innovation. In Zimbabwe, the Automotive and Allied Workers Union just won a 10% wage increase and better housing allowances, pushing for better standards as production scales up. In Nigeria, union leaders are tying worker bonuses to local sourcing goals, pushing automakers to use more local steel, rubber and fabric. It's a smart move. Management gets lower logistics costs, workers get stronger job security, everyone wins. Africa is proving that advanced manufacturing doesn't have to mean replacing workers with machines. It can mean training workers to become problem solvers and innovators. Every new hire that learns how to install a solar panel or troubleshoot an alternator becomes part of something bigger. As giants pivoted to catch up, Tesla knew it had to respond, and fast. How Tesla is fighting back. Tesla has faced competition before, but nothing quite like this. When word got out that Zimbabwean inventor Maxwell Chikumbutso had built a self-charging electric vehicle, it hit Silicon Valley hard.
Chikumbutso, a 44-year-old man, a resident of Zimbabwe in Harare.
Videos of his free energy car spread like wildfire online, pulling in millions of views in just days. And while engineers and scientists around the world quickly raised questions about the science behind it, the impact was already being felt. The idea of a car that charges itself while driving sounded like fiction, but it was getting traction fast, and that was enough to make Tesla nervous. This was more than just another electric vehicle announcement. Tesla's entire business model is built around charging infrastructure. Over $10 billion invested in superchargers, home plugs, and proprietary battery tech. If people start to believe they no longer need to plug in their cars, then Tesla's most valuable asset isn't an advantage anymore. It becomes a liability. A self-charging EV, even if partially true, threatens to erase the reason Tesla's network ever mattered. Elon Musk didn't respond with panic, at least not publicly. He's always been skeptical of ambient wireless charging, especially at the scale needed to power a moving vehicle. He's pointed out that energy can't be created out of thin air, and he's right. Physics still applies. So when the Chikumbutso story started trending, Tesla kept quiet. No official press release, no open attack. But behind closed doors, things moved quickly. Musk reportedly asked Tesla's top engineers to analyze the clips and study whether any current technologies could explain what they were seeing. His teams in battery systems, solar and energy recovery got the call to dig deeper, even if the idea seemed far-fetched. At the same time, Tesla was already working on its next big project, the Redwood, a compact crossover planned to hit production by mid-2025 at Gigafactory, Texas. Leaked documents showed that this model would aim for a sticker price under $30,000, about half the cost of the current entry-level Model 3. Now, the pressure is on to build in features that nudge it closer to the self-charging narrative. Engineers are racing to include solar skins, more powerful regenerative braking, and a new 48-volt electrical system that helps reduce wasted energy. These tweaks won't make it truly plug-free, but they help Tesla stay relevant in a world suddenly obsessed with energy independence on wheels. But trouble was already brewing. Even before the self-charging buzz, Tesla's grip on global markets was slipping. In Europe, their share of new EV registrations dropped below 1% this spring, marking the fourth straight month of decline. And in April, Tesla's global quarterly sales fell by 13%, their worst performance in almost 3 years. So when the Chikumbutso video went viral, it didn't just stir curiosity, it spooked investors. Within days, Tesla's stock dropped, wiping billions off its market value. Analysts started to question not just the science of self-charging, but whether Tesla could hold on to its lead if this technology, real or not, gained momentum in the public's imagination. Tesla didn't waste time exploring its options. The fastest move? Get Redwood on the road as soon as possible and price it aggressively. If buyers can't have self-charging, maybe they'll settle for cheap and efficient. Behind the scenes, there were also whispers of outreach. Executives reportedly began discreetly contacting African labs, trying to find out whether Chikumbutso's design was real, scalable, or something in between. These conversations were kept quiet, likely to avoid looking like Tesla was chasing a tech it had publicly ignored. Internally, Tesla started pushing a new initiative called Project Infinite. The name might sound dramatic, but the goal is pretty clear. Find every possible way to recover energy from a moving car. Teams are working on ideas like capturing power from suspension movement, tire pressure shifts, and even panel vibrations. Most of these are extensions of existing energy recovery systems, but the hope is to squeeze out enough power to cover 15% of a car's daily energy needs, all without plugging in. The first working prototypes are being targeted for release by 2027. If successful, it won't replace the supercharger network, but it might give Tesla a new way to market itself as a leader in self-sustaining mobility, rather than being stuck defending yesterday's infrastructure. Still, one big problem remains. No independent lab has verified the science behind Chikumbutso's self-charging vehicle. Physics says you can't move without inputting energy, but public perception doesn't. Wait for peer-reviewed papers.
Anyway, enough of me blabbering, let me hop onto the driver's seat and check what this car is all about.
It moves fast. If enough consumers start to believe that plug-free driving is possible, even just in theory, it changes the conversation. Tesla's best move now is speed. Deliver a low-cost model, boost real-world efficiency, and make sure the brand stays linked to big, bold ideas, not bulky charging cables. The irony is that Tesla helped make electric cool, but now it's the one being challenged by a car that doesn't need to charge at all. Africa has shaken the system, and the next few months will show if Tesla can adapt or if it gets left behind by a new kind of revolution. Tesla's next steps may be bold, but another breakthrough promises to reshape how cars charge altogether. These charging roads are changing everything. 10 years ago, the idea that a road could charge your car while you drive sounded ridiculous, but that's now a real thing in multiple countries, and it's working. The system is simple in concept, but advanced in execution. Just a few centimeters beneath the asphalt, flat copper coils connected to the power grid generate a magnetic field. That energy is picked up by a special receiver installed underneath the car and converted into electricity. The coils only activate when an equipped vehicle passes overhead, which helps minimize energy loss and keeps pedestrians safe. This setup is known as a dynamic electric road system, and Sweden is leading the charge. On the island of Gotland, engineers built a 1.6-kilometer stretch called Smart Road Gotland, where a 40-ton truck has already driven at speeds of 80 kilometers per hour while drawing up to 100 kilowatts of power straight from the road, even during icy winter conditions.
Wireless charging electric road system. They're out on the road right now filming our electric bus charging while driving.
The success of that project convinced Sweden to move ahead with building the world's first permanent inductive motorway. A 21-kilometer section of the E20 highway is now being prepped for electrification, and the goal is to open it to freight traffic before 2026. That's just the start, as Sweden plans to build 2,000 kilometers of these roads by the end of the decade. Italy is moving just as fast. Near the A35 highway in Brescia, engineers have built a 1-kilometer test loop called Arena del Futuro. This stretch is powered at 1 megawatt and has already wirelessly recharged a Fiat 500 and an Iveco electric bus while driving at highway speeds. The transfer efficiency has reached above 85%, which is extremely impressive. Stellantis, the parent company of Fiat, says this proves that long-haul trucks could run with much smaller battery packs and spend less time charging, and that would cut both weight and cost. Based on the early results, Italy is now considering adding the same wireless charging system under a live stretch of motorway once it passes its second winter of testing. In the United States, Michigan has become the first state to power up a dynamic charging road. In Detroit's Corktown district, a quarter-mile stretch of 14th Street was fitted with wireless coils late last year. The project cost just under $2 million and brought together partners like the state of Michigan, the city of Detroit, Ford, DTE Energy, and Israeli tech company Electrion. Tests using a Ford e-Transit van have already shown that the system can add around 20 kilometers of range per hour at city driving speeds, more than enough to keep delivery vehicles topped up between stops. Officials have confirmed the pilot will expand to 1 full mile after more performance data is collected through Detroit's freezing winter. The biggest challenge today is cost. A review of European infrastructure tenders found that installing just 1 kilometre of inductive charging road costs between 6 and 20 million euros, depending on how much traffic the road handles and whether it needs a full rebuild. But there's a reason that governments are still going ahead with it. Heavy-duty trucks, responsible for around a quarter of road transport emissions, benefit the most. If those trucks can cut battery size by half, they can carry more cargo and drop tens of thousands of euros off the cost of each vehicle. Over time, that saves fleet operators money and makes clean transport more competitive. This technology is now catching on faster than anyone expected. In France, a new pilot is being launched on the A10 highway outside Paris. In Germany, engineers are weighing wireless inductive charging lanes against the overhead cable systems already being tested on the A5 near Frankfurt. China is moving fast too. In Wuhan, a 3-kilometer wireless charging corridor for buses is already under construction. And in Israel, Electron is developing a full airport shuttle route that recharges while running. For everyday drivers, this matters more than it may seem. Dynamic charging goes after the two biggest reasons people hesitate to buy EVs: the high price and the fear of running out of charge. If the road handles some of your daily charging needs, your car doesn't need a giant battery. For cities, dynamic charging leads to cleaner air and quieter streets without waiting for everyone to install a home charger. For rural areas and truck routes, it allows transport to go electric without the need for massive battery depots at every stop. And in places like Africa, where rugged, self-sustaining vehicles are already becoming the norm, turning roads into power sources just makes sense. Critics say it only works for vehicles equipped with receivers, but even that barrier is coming down. Electron says that mass production will bring the price of each receiver to under $2,000 within the next 2 years. Dynamic charging won't replace plugs overnight and batteries aren't going anywhere. But this technology is no longer an experiment. It's already solving real problems. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.